welcome back.
Hey,
Sorry for the Thanksgiving hiatus. Glad to have you back too, man. You was in Jersey doing your thing.
welcome back. Happy my own self.
And Mason Cameron just had a beef too, man. For all my hip
man.
pods out there. It was bad.
Nobody wins when the family feuds.
Mason Cameron.
Yeah. So man, we got a special guest in the building. I've never really sat and conversed with any, except for one time. I take that back. One other time, but not on no platform like this, but any kind of in-depth conversation with either a former or active military member. And so we have Nicholas Irving, and he's a former Special Operations Action Sniper in the 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means, man. I'm gonna be honest. What does that mean?
So it's a special operations organization. You have 75th Ranger Regiment. You have Navy SEALs. You got Delta Force. You have Marine Force Recon. All these special dudes. And 75th Ranger Regiment is broken down into 3 sections. Like you have SEAL Team 1 through 1,000,000 or whatever they have now. We only have 3. And I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, combined, all of us, it's like less than 3,000 guys total out of the entire Army.
And you were a sniper.
Yeah.
So you was a sharpshooter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I grew up doing that, though.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Maryland, like kind of the city, somewhat the city, but my family, my mom, she's from Georgia.
Okay.
And my dad's from Texas. He's from Texarkana.
Okay.
So I would go down there.
Country roots.
Yeah. I would always go down summer vacation and stuff like that, man. And everyone had a gun down there, especially in Georgia. They lived out in this place called Hogansville. Still do, and it's deep, deep, deep south, man. Like
Bibles and guns, man.
Yeah, a lot of deep roots, man. And that's where I started shooting at. And I used to set up this little, I was in elementary school, around 5th or 6th grade, man. And I used to set up my granddad's cigarettes about 100 yards out or 100 feet away on this little board or plywood I had found. And I would try to shoot at it and snap it. And when I got to the point where I was snapping the cigarettes in half, I was like, okay, I'm pretty good.
And you were shooting with a what?
Little 22.
You was snapping cigarettes with a 22.
Yeah.
That's some movie shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But it happened. It was a lifelong dream, man. Both my parents were in the military.
Right.
And I was born overseas in Augsburg. And it was like always instilled in me, like watching Chuck Norris and Delta Force, watching Charlie Sheen and Navy SEALs. And they had this one sniper in there called God. And they called him God because he could see and hear everything. And he could take life whenever he chose to. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
That's hot.
Yeah, so that's what I went to go to do. I had no idea I was going to go to war or anything, but I just liked the concept behind it.
Right.
Being alone and doing what you want to do.
Right. Wow, man, that is, what a life path, man. I never even got close to that life path.
I was terrible at school. I already, it wasn't even, I wasn't a dumb kid or anything. I knew where I wanted to be in life.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to be in the military. I knew I wanted to be a sniper. And I had a few setbacks along the way, like medically, colorblind, and
I saw that because you wanted to be a SEAL, right? And they don't allow colorblind people.
Nope.
What would be the reason for that?
In case we got, I don't know, disarm a bomb or shoot the guy in the red, outfit or something. I don't know.
Wow.
No idea. But I went there right out of high school. Barely graduated high school. I had a 1.7. Not a bad kid. I got into a lot of fights and stuff like that, and hung around a different crowd. And
not a bad kid. Got a lot of fights. 1.7.
Yeah, I wasn't a bad kid. One of the bad
Then I learned to shoot guns.
Yeah. I was like, I got a fallback plan, and my parents were. My dad was more into me doing whatever I wanted to do in life. He was whatever he wants to do. He's a man. He has to figure it out on his own. So he was a big, I guess, facilitator or enabler on what I wanted to do. He would drive me out to Annapolis Beach, and he'd make me run 2 miles up and down the beach with boots and pants on, swim a mile. I was in like 11th grade, and my mom signed me up to this Navy Sea Cadet Corps out in Annapolis. And I went through this program. I wasn't supposed to get out of school, but by the luck of, the universe, man, I was able to get out of school and didn't have to take all these tests and stuff like that. Went to go to a program called the Baby SEAL program. And in order to get in it, you have to pass the actual Navy SEAL fitness test. It's like a 500-meter swim in 12 minutes, 30 seconds, 70-something push-ups, 70-something sit-ups, forget how many pull-ups.
And without stopping.
Yeah, and then a 2.5-mile run in boots and pants. And it's time. I forget the time, like 15 or something like that minutes.
I think I could do that, man.
Hey, it's not hard.
I don't care.
The swim is
they give me. I ain't trying to do that.
The swim was the hard part, man. Growing up in the city and then being self-taught, my dad hooked me up with this guy who was in Delta Force, man, and he taught me how to swim. And went on past the test and went to this Baby SEAL program, graduated, got back to high school, barely graduated that, finished, was lucky I had a chance to walk across the stage. At first, they were telling my parents they're going to mail the diploma. This guy, I was just one of those kids that just didn't care, and I was like ready to send me off to the military. So right before I got the diploma, we had the recruiter come over to my house, and we signed some documents. My mom was like, she's crying and stuff like, no, let me step back. I went to the Navy MEP station and, applied to be a Navy SEAL and all this, took the ASVAB test twice, failed the first, not failed, but I didn't have a high score.
There's a written test too.
Yeah, at the ASVAB.
I had no idea about it.
Anybody can pass it. It's just you have to have a certain score. Okay. Like you have to have a genius level to do like nuclear stuff, or I don't know. I never even touched that.
You have to be deep in like sciences and stuff like that.
Everything. It's all like an accumulative thing of reading, like geometry, math, all types of stuff. So I failed all that, and then barely had the score to get into the Navy SEAL program, which was like a 110 or something like that, or 112, and went to do all the physical stuff. And they opened up this book, and it's like an easy horror test, and it's got like little dots in there of different colors, and in those colors is a number, and they flip it to the first page, and that's the first page. There's a number that what is it? There's a number that only colorblind people can see. Regular people can't see it. So she flips it open, and I'm like, 13, bow. I'm a Navy SEAL now.
I'm killing this.
Yeah. And then she looks up at me. She's like, okay. Flips the next page, and I'm like, this is a joke. I've clearly already passed. There's no other numbers in here. Right. So I was just making up stuff. I was like, A, 30, 50. And she's like, okay, let's stop here. She's like, you're colorblind. And I'm like, no, come on. She's like, you can't be a SEAL, all this and that.
And you never knew you were colorblind before?
I had an idea. Like, my mom would always change my socks out or my pants or my shirts before school. I would wear like purple and just dark colors, and to me it was black, black and blue or whatever.
So what's your defense? Because my stepfather's red green. Okay, yeah, so my stepfather's colorblind, and we always make fun of him about it, man.
Yeah, have him match some clothes, man.
So for Christmas one time we gave him a Rubik's cube.
Yeah, that's my stuff. I'm good.
Nah, but so many questions I want to ask, man. But,
yeah.
So you're not able to become a Navy SEAL. Is that disheartening, and does it kind of change your
whole life, man? I cried. I went home, and I'm the type of guy, like, I study everything. If I fail something, I need to know why I failed it, and there has to be a way around it. There just has to be. A man made it. A man can defeat it. So I went home and I studied what I thought was every single possibility of the easy horror test. So I would remember patterns opposed to colors, and study that. Went back, took the test. And this time they did not give me the same test. They gave me a light test. And I was like, oh, crap, shit, this is...
For this one.
I didn't have no idea how to even pass this. But the lady heard my plea for whatever, cry, and she took me over. It was a nurse. She took me over to her station, and she gave me the exact same easy horror test. But this time she outlined all the numbers with her finger. And I just repeated what she was outlining, and she was like, you're perfect, color, no color vision. And I joined the Army. The recruiter... he came over and he asked me, he's like, so what do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be as close as I can to a Navy SEAL. Give me that. And he's like, well, you're not smart enough. Well, not smart enough. You didn't have the right score to be a Green Beret, but you have the right score to be a Ranger. And I was like, well, what do they do? And he's like, well, they're like Navy SEAls, but they don't swim. I was like, sign me up.
I didn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah, I'll do it. It's like, did they get a chance to fight and go to war? Because at this time, 9/11 had already happened.
Right.
And
was that a big influence to you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were how old when that happened? I think I was like 13, 14,
oh,
maybe?
Man. I was in
2001 it was. So.
Ninth grade.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, ninth grade. And I remember watching it on the TV.
Right.
And we all left the school. My school was like different, man. It was
Yeah, I was on the East Coast too, so it was probably like,
and the school, the place behind me was NSA, like not too far.
Yeah.
NSA and the Pentagon and all that.
Yeah, that's right. Ooh.
Yeah. So we all
it was like a real fear, like
it was scary. Yeah. It was scary. And then like they didn't have to release us. My sister, she went to a middle school like a half a mile away from my high school, and I had this best friend, Dre, growing up. So he had two sisters. So I grabbed him. Guys are hopping off the stairs. There's a few fights and stuff like that. And
it was pandemonium.
Mayhem. It was mayhem.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we damn. We were
mayhem.
real orderly. Was your school like that?
No, I was in like 5th grade and I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Young blood. Yeah, no,
it was crazy.
I think we had an announcement, and then like our parents slowly picked us up, but people just left.
My school was different.
We was
man. It
out west
bad.
though, so at that time I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So
yeah.
I mean, nobody's ever gonna do anything to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we weren't scared, but they were like, I mean, this is a threat. You guys can go home. But y'all was like, I'm out of here.
Oh, the kids. I mean, we just left anyways. The teachers were trying to keep us inside the school where it was safe or whatnot, but. It was like, man, the world's coming to an end. Let's just leave. So we all grabbed
1.7.
Yeah, I don't even need this anyways. Yeah. I was in biology class when it happened, and I had no aspirations of doing anything related to biology. So it's like, Dre, let's go.
Yeah.
We left. We ran across the street and 1/2 mile down to pick up our sisters, and they're going crazy at that school too. We grabbed them. My mom's she's calling Dre. I didn't have a cell phone at the time, and she's calling his track phone. If you remember what a track phone is, where you like pay by the man. It was a cheap phone.
Oh, the throwaways.
Yeah, throwaway
okay,
phone.
throwaways,
Drop phone. And she's calling him, and she's like, "You guys run home." So we live 2 miles away, so we sprint, dead sprint. Got our sisters, and we get back to the house, man. And I remember BWI Airport, Baltimore Washington International Airport, was right there where I lived at. And they shut down the airport, and it was the quietest it had ever been. I had lived there since 93 to 2001, and it's the quietest I've ever heard, like, our neighborhood. And people were packing up and stuff like that. My dad gets a weird phone call. He has to leave because he still, he did stuff with the government and stuff like that, man. So he left, and watching all the guys in high school who were seniors leaving to the military and then coming back, they're like, man, I'm going to go kill people. And I was like, oh, man. Not that I was like wanting to kill people, but it was just like, man, they're in the action. They're getting a chance to, do something back to the enemy and all this and that. So I couldn't wait, man. It was just riding out time. And once I finally had a chance to go, it was, I went.
So you went, man, and how was that transition? So like,
terrible, terrible, man. I was scared. Like, I don't know. I was I didn't know what I was getting into, per se. And then
because you have an idea watching movies, having inspirations.
But that's all you see, though. That's all you see is the fun stuff that no one told me about the basic training and getting yelled at. And
so what was that? What is that like?
Oh,
what is
man.
That like?
It was
the basic. Take it the average Joe through basic training work day. Because I'm so ignorant when it comes to like day-to-day operations of the military.
Dumb. It's so dumb. Like, I would never do it again. It's, you wake up or you get there and they put you in this holding center. It's called 30th AG. And you wear you're not allowed to run there. You're not allowed to do any type of working out in case you get hurt before you go to basic training where the actual Army stuff starts.
Right.
So I'm just molting away, and guys are attempting suicide there and cutting their wrist in the bathroom because they want to go home, and just a pure boredom, man. Like, you're
How long do they hold you there?
I was in there for about 3 weeks, man, 2 to 3 weeks.
Is it like a mental test, or are they mentally testing?
No, it's just waiting for the next class or something like that, and
so
getting all your equipment in and all that, man, and getting you programmed to waking up, standing in formation, eating at a certain time and a certain time limit.
So what year was this?
This was 2004.
Okay, so that was like around the sidekick days, like when people had a side. It's like what would
the sidekick, you the little phone.
The phones. Yeah. If you don't know, those were those. So like, I mean, because I'm thinking like if it's nowadays in the holding cells, people could pass time easily with smartphones.
They take all that away.
They take it.
They take it away. Yeah. You're institutionalized,
That's like an insane asylum.
It
almost.
is, man. That's why people were committing suicide, trying to run across the train track. And I remember opening up a stall to the bathroom, and there's this guy in there, and he's crying, and both of his wrists are slit. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here, man. This is crazy. So I called my dad, and I was like, hey, this is crazy. This isn't for me. I want to come home. And he was like, son, don't call me with that again. You said you wanted to do something, you completed. And I was like, man, this guy. So I went, finished all that little portion. Then I went into the actual basic training, and that's where you start getting yelled at. So I remember I got there, and we have to hold these bags over our head. It has all the equipment, all the clothing we'll ever need, and we're holding it over our head. And it's Fort Benning, Georgia.
It's those big green ones that they do? Okay.
Yep. And it was real hot. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, this is terrible. I'm sweating in this, a starchy uniform, and the starch is starting to stick to my skin, and it just feel disgusting. And I was watching everyone else struggling to do push-ups and hold bags up. I'm like, this has got to be a joke. Like, there's no way this is going to prepare me for war or whatever. Right. It was just the breaking down stage. And then you get issued your barracks room, your bunk, and show you how to make it. And this went on for, I had already knew how to make up beds and stuff like that. My dad had taught me how to make it military style. But what I would do is I never had to remake my bed. I would just sleep on top of it or underneath the bed because I wanted my sleep. I was like, no,
Right.
I'm not
Cutting
waking up.
corners,
Yeah,
man.
I'm not waking up at 4 o'clock every morning to make up this bed. I'm going to get
Right.
the extra 30 minutes of sleep before we go outside and do PT. I was never like a big runner, I guess, or maybe I ran too much growing up
Right.
and messed up my shins, and I had shin splints. So, and stress fractures, and that just like lasted all the way through basic training, 14 weeks, and the last 2 weeks,
And
my
you have to
parents.
push through that.
Oh, I had to. Yeah, but in that time, I remember like trying to quit so much and calling home when I could call home or sneaking to go use a phone and like, you got to get me out of here. Like this place is not for me. I can't do it, you know? And like my dad being the dad he was from growing up, every time I would fall down the stairs or bust my knee up or something like that, he wouldn't like pamper me. He would just say, take that pain and throw it out. Like, we don't need that here.
Right.
So I never was like that type of person. I guess I needed him to say that again, but I really wanted to go home.
Right.
I think at the time. But yeah, he would just, basically tell me the same thing and stick it out. They came to see me the last 2 weeks before we graduated, and my ankles and my shins were like swollen up and puffy. And I remember waking up one day after this, what was it, a 12-mile road march with, was it 40 pounds or something like that? And I woke up in the middle of the night on my bunk, and I couldn't see my feet. It was just ankle. And I was like, oh, man, this is fucked up.
Swollen.
Yeah, bad, man. And pushed through that, and I knew I had a break coming up before I went to airborne school, jumping out of airplanes and stuff like that. But I knew there's a lot of running in airborne too, but I still wanted to go home. So I knew my ankles were messed up, and I was like, man, this place, I don't want to be in the Army anymore. So what I would do is I was in like another holding cell, and I would get on the top bunk and then try to jump off and just land on one ankle like sideways to just snap it.
Trying to snap it.
Yeah, I just wanted to go home.
Jesus.
And I never got a chance to do it. I would, get scared or something like, man, come on. I break this. There's no one in the room with me, and me being me, and I'm not going to, I'm going to crawl out. Who am I going to tell? I don't have no idea what it feels like to purposely break something on your body.
Right.
So I didn't do that. Went on to airborne school, pushed through that, man, and got a chance to jump out of planes. I love those. We jump out of planes 5 times there, and I love that.
What's that? What's that like? 'Cause
I'm terrified of heights, man.
You afraid of heights?
Terrified.
So did that help shake it?
No, man. I think I was blacking out like as getting to the door.
All right.
I'm scared to get on a rooftop and stuff like that. So my dad, he's like, hey, you're gonna have to jump out of planes. Let's get on the roof. And I'm like, no, it's not happening. And I would climb up halfway to the on the ladder, and then it's like, no, like 10 feet. I'm like, no, I need to get down. This is too much. And then we're up at 1,200 feet or something like that.
It's insane.
And they open up the door. And I was the first guy out, man, of the door. So I'm standing in the doorway.
You're the first one?
Yeah, they knew I was scared of heights, so the instructors pulled me to the front. They're like, nope, you're going to the front. I was like, hey, you got to be kidding me. So they open up the door, man, and all you see is just like the horizon. And they say, keep your eyes on the horizon. Don't look down. I'm looking down. I'm like, oh, my gosh. There's like, trees going underneath cars and stuff. Like, you want me to jump out of this, man? And I see the, light flash, and he goes, go, go. And then everything gets black. I fell out, jumped out. Then like a couple seconds down, I kind of opened my eyes, and I could see the plane flying away. And I was like, this is not supposed to be happening.
So I'm falling down there.
Yeah, out of the plane. I'm watching the plane go away. And then my parachute opens up, boom.
You opened it up. You had to open it up,
No,
right?
it automatically opens up. So you have this thing like connected to a cable inside the plane, and when you jump out, it pulls it for you, but you get 4 seconds, 5 seconds of free fall.
Right.
That was fun. Like the rush of it. Once I hit the ground, I knew everything was fine. I was like, man, that wasn't that bad.
Right.
Did it 4 more times after that, graduated, and then went on to selection process, man, of to be an Army Ranger. And it's like 85 guys that started up in the class. And I remember when they came to pick us up from airborne school when we graduated, they were like, this is tall guy, man. He's got this beret on, the beret with the Rangers wear. I'm like, man, this guy is a killer. You could just see it in his eyes. Like, this guy's not the guy you want. He's like 6 foot something, solid dude. And he'd been to war plenty of times. And I was like, man, I got to hang with these guys. So he's like, let's run. I had no idea where we were running to. We just have all our bags. And he hops in his truck, and he says, keep up with the truck. If you fall out, you're done. I'm like, golly, man. So we run there. I don't fall out. And that's where the pain started, man. Like, it's called RIP. It was Ranger Indoctrination Program. And that's where all the pain started. Like, it was like a little bit over a month, man, of just a continuous beatdown. but that's what I wanted though. I didn't get that in basic training or anything else. It was like, man, where's the fun stuff? Where's the grimy, like, I'll punch you in the face type,
Right.
Where's the violence? Not, it was just what I was used to growing up.
Right.
I needed that to prove who I was. I got like my senior year of high school, man, it was every single day almost, bro, like getting jumped or attempted to get jumped. No one ever wanted to fight one-on-one after, I don't know. I wasn't like really good with my hands, but you're not gonna smack me in the face. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I think you probably could have held yourself pretty well, man.
No, if I got suspended one more time, it was gonna be no graduation, repeat the 12th grade.
Oh, so everybody was trying you.
Everybody tried me. And it got to the point one time, man,
Damn.
I had a whole neighborhood essentially come to my neighborhood to jump me. And I heard word through
What was you involved in, man?
I don't even know that time. It was, I'll tell you what, this is what my firm belief is, man. Like, I was a buff kid in high school.
Right.
Like, that's all my, from elementary school, my dad would punish me by go do push-ups, bench press, go do this. It was just a lot of physical stuff. And, I wasn't as small. I played football and stuff like that, running back. And then I sucked at that real bad. So my coach was like, you just need to play center, bro. You should never have the ball. Yeah. I had a lot of anger, man, or something. And I learned like the stuff that goes on in the lines, the stuff you can get away with. Like I was smacking dudes and elbowing dudes in the helmet.
Yeah, you belonged in the Army, man.
Yeah, that was my thing, man. And I remember.
But you mean to tell me that people were just on you to be on you? You wasn't an antagonist.
I did. Okay. Well, this is how that one fight.
Walking down the hall like.
Oh, this one fight where the whole neighborhood came to jump me. I was what was it, Halloween night? Me and Dre are walking down the street, and we see this girl, man. Yeah. And yeah,
that's how
I see her up
starts,
walking into this one neighborhood, and I see a chick, and she's standing up on the porchway. Now I only see her, and it was this big dude named Big Brian who lived around that area. I had no idea. He was behind the bushes talking to her. I just see a chick. So I'm like, hey, boom, boom, right? And then he pops his head out, and I'm just like, oh, my gosh, right? So I just keep it moving. He didn't say anything, but the next day at school, this big rumor has started. They were like, this dude named, what was his name? Chance. I forget his name. Chance or somebody. He was like, hey, after school today, don't get off the bus stop. I was like, why? What's going on? He said, hey, I heard that they're coming after you, and they're not playing this time. I was like, oh, crap, man. I need to find a cell phone. So I'm going around trying to find the cell phone. I finally get one, run to the bathroom. I call my mom. I'm like, hey, I need you to pick me up after school. She's like, what did you get into now? I said, I don't know. I just know that they're coming to jump me, and it's a lot of them, and these dudes don't play.
You must have said something crazy to that girl.
All I said was, hey. All I said was, hey. But I should have known, though.
It's one side of the story. I knew they were the whole dude saying, what's up?
I knew she was dating him.
Come on, Nick.
But he was like the big dude in the neighborhood. I knew they were talking. I had no idea they were like hardcore dating. People date all the time and stuff like that. But yeah, I called her up and she said, okay, I'm gonna be at the bus stop. And she finds out through other people and all this and that, man, that there's like 40 guys coming. And she's calling,
for little old Nick.
Bro, you should have seen the fight behind my neighborhood for this one chick who had talked. It was like, no joke, like 100 people came out. A whole neighborhood, man. They had the whole street. You had to walk.
I mean, it might be a cultural difference, like, cause
big time.
I mean, you grew up in Jersey. Were they like that on the East Coast?
Yeah. I got in a fight about a girl one time back like in 5th grade, but nobody brought 40 people.
You went on one with it, Nick.
It was 40 guys, man. I'm sure the majority were there. It was a gang. Like, this dude was a big name.
Was he a gang banger? Because that would make a little more sense.
He was in some stuff. Okay. I'm not gonna say it was a gang. He claimed to have been a Crip or Blood. It was a Blood or something like that.
All right, so it was probably.
But he had some guys with him though. Like, he had a new car every week, a Mustang, and he was in some stuff. But
so this was just to send a message.
He came to
try to get some stripes or something.
No, he came to get me, man. My mom she called all her friends, and my dad called his friends. And then Dre, my friend, he called his.
This is how they roll in Maryland, man. Yeah. I had no idea that they roll like there's no fair ones in Maryland. It's all.
I'm a Baltimore, Maryland.
You call your Rolodex, I'll call my Rolodex.
Baltimore, it was Bodymore Murderland at the time.
Yeah, that's true though.
Murderland.
I mean, it's still bad over there.
That's bad, man. My parents and my sister still lives there, but they moved out of that area. But it still is, they still. Yeah.
No, we all got rough parts, man. So, hell of a tangent, man. But back.
Yeah. I didn't get jumped though. I did. I low crawled across the street. went into my friend's grandmother's house, and I was like, hey, man, my parents, their friends had showed up. Dre's dad had a sawed off. My dad's church friend had a axe with a chain. All this and that. It's like ready to go at it. They had guns. It was crazy, man. My
You made
dad
a hell of a life, man.
shotgun in the truck, man. And,
Born to do what you did. That's for sure.
oh yeah.
So, so you say all that to say, you got to the fun stuff in the army.
Oh yeah. My bad. So yeah, I get to the fun stuff.
So you was born
man.
for this.
Yeah, I get to the fun stuff, and we had a class of 85 guys, and I'm like, big dudes. I'm, not a tall, big guy, whatnot. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna make this. All these 85 plus guys, man, and the beating continued for, like I said, about a little over a month, and the physical pain really didn't get me. It was more the mental stuff. They would play a lot of mental games. Right. They'd kept us up for 2 or 3 days or something like that, and just continuous, just like, hey, do push-ups until I get tired. Push-ups until the earth moves, or push-ups till I get back.
The earth moves every second of the day.
Oh, they meant like push it off the axis.
I'm like, yeah, got me with that one.
And then they.
So I like things like that where you're staying up 2-3 days at a time. That could actually fuck with your anatomy. Like what?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What, how? Like are they cognizant? Do they know that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I could make these people. Like, I don't know if you can get schizophrenia, but like you can cause major mental health problems. Like,
But I think that's what they want, though, for the job we're going into. It's like 35 guys we're sent out to wreak havoc and have no emotion about it.
and so what? I don't even. So what was this called again?
RIP.
And it was
R.I.P. That's what,
Ranger what?
indoctrination program.
Ranger Indoctrination Program, and this was to be a ranger.
Yep.
And a ranger was part of the army.
Mm-hmm. Special ops.
Special
yeah.
ops, and so these weren't all snipers. Some of them would be
Just, it could be anything from, you start off, you just go in after you graduate. If you graduate, you go into.
so everybody goes through RIP. That goes through.
Yep,
Army. That's
yeah.
as an army veteran.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no, Ranger.
Army
Yeah.
Ranger. So how many different subsets are there of army? When you say I was in the army, how many different subsets?
Hundreds, man.
Oh,
Like
there's
you have
okay,
like
well,
101st Airborne, you got 82nd Airborne, 10th Mountain Division. These are all big organizations. You don't have to do a selection. Once you graduate basic, you just get in that unit.
So is it like? I mean, and excuse the analogy here, but this is all
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah,
liken it
yeah.
to, man. Because I play Call of Duty a lot.
Me too.
Okay,
Oh, dude,
cool.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So,
That's my game.
so it's like there's like infantry. So like if you use like infantry, that's like the foot soldiers who people are on land, and then they have like airborne, like you said, people are in planes.
Yep.
And then they have I get like what? How many different like if you could
Okay,
lump
yeah.
them up into like categories, like if it was a Call of Duty, like how would you?
What
lump
were
it?
the Rangers in Call of Duty? Was that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying like how would you lump it? Like so there's infantry, there's like foot soldiers. and
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
snipers,
Okay. Yeah. You got overall. You have the foot soldiers, which is the infantry.
Right.
Then you have, man, everybody else like intel,
okay.
medics. You have everything. Veterinarians. It's just a job.
So if you're a
yeah.
medic or a veterinarian, you don't have to go through like a RIP program.
Oh hell
do you?
no.
Okay.
This is just for selective, like voluntarily. Do you want to get destroyed physically and mentally?
Right.
I guess mentally. Physically, do you want to get destroyed? So sign your name on the dotted line, and
But in order to be like infantry or in the field,
you have to just
go
do
through that.
basic. No, you just do basic.
So this one was just for you.
This is
It's
just for
optional?
Rangers. Yeah, just for
It's just
Rangers.
optional.
If you want to be spec ops, you have to go. Okay, so you play Call of Duty. Imagine, have you ever played Rainbow Six?
No, I never played remote.
Oh, you got to play Rainbow Six. I'm trying to think of a cool. How about you ever seen Born Identity?
Yeah.
Okay, Jason Bourne, before he was in all that stuff, he was like a Ranger Delta Force guy.
Right.
That's where you learn all the special stuff at.
Okay.
And there's like not many of us. So there's only we make up less than 1% of the entire military.
So when they say special
Army,
ops,
yeah.
that's how they.
You have to go through a selection.
Okay.
And only the cream of the crop. Yeah.
So you're like the top of the army.
There's only one higher than us, and that's Delta.
Delta.
Yeah. Those guys don't even exist though.
Really?
Yeah, they don't even exist.
This is all brand new to me, man.
Yeah. So we had 85 and graduated 7. I was one of the 7.
That's man.
Everyone else quit. Yeah.
And so like, because I heard that about the SEALs. Like, there's a guy that came to speak to us one time who was, I forget what he was a part of, but like some of the tests that they have people do are just insane.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's insanity.
Oh yeah.
And it's just strictly to break you.
It's only to if you break, you're not meant for the job. For the job. If you don't break, at least you can take an attempt. That's the easy stuff. Like all that selection, that's the easy stuff. The hard part is when you actually get in.
Right.
That's where the bigger attrition rates start. That's where you have to be perfect at all times. It's like you don't drink and drive. If you get in trouble, you're done. All that work for nothing. Then you go to like Korea to be a cook or something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you have to be
like
perfect.
Discipline.
All 100%. You have to be perfect. Like there's even as a civilian, like when you're out of uniform as a ranger, you carry this book around and you have to dress a certain way, like look a certain way. You can't be
even retired Army or is it?
No, hell no.
Oh y'all
I'm gonna wear what I want to wear.
Y'all wide open now.
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
40 deep.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna do what I want.
So I want to get into a little bit of the mental aspect of it because I've always wondered about this. Einstein had this quote, man.
Love Einstein.
See if you could look at this quote, and you might know the quote then. So Einstein had this quote. I think he
Warrantless
said,
world?
"Yeah."
What is it?
A warless world will be when the children refuse to serve, some shit like that. Well, let me see what it is.
It's also one. Yeah.
You went straight to the images.
Yeah, because they're just gonna have it nice and together right there.
It might not be accurate though.
Pioneers
This is definitely the internet. Okay, so he said the pioneers of a warless world are the young men and women who refuse military service. So
I don't believe that quote though, and I love Einstein.
Right.
Like I study Einstein, I study Earl Nightingale, I study Napoleon Hill. But dude, I think that what's wrong with that quote is, even if you refuse military service, right? There's no one in the military. If America had no military, my enemy sees that as a weakness, and they're going to come in and do whatever they want. Us being survival of the fittest, and the people that we are resilient, we're going to pick up guns and fight, whether you call it military or not. That's essentially what it is.
I think on this quote, he's referring to not more localized, talking about America in general. I think he's talking about globally. Like if kids, period, one day see, like, I'm not fighting this war anymore. Because this is part of the aspect I kind of wanted to get into, right? So you see, my problem with politics right now, and it bothers the shit out of me, man, because like when I see like death tolls in wars, I don't like. It's just not a number to me. Like it's people, and I'll be the first to say I've never, like I had one family member that I think that was in the Navy, but we're not that close, and I've never had really any friends in the Army or Navy, so I'm not like super. I'm not closely tied to anybody in the military, right? But I'm just like I'm a humanist. Like I'm not one of those people who are super advocates of war.
I became that way after war.
You said you became that way?
Yeah.
So like, what do you feel about the political climate and politicians that are that kind of
you going? Yeah, I think about it all the time, man. Like I got names tattooed on my arm from guys that saved my life and died. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when I was there or in it, like guys die. You kind of like you expect it. Bullets fly. You're fighting. You know, people who don't want you there, and they're gonna shoot, and bullets just hit wherever they're gonna hit. Unless you're a sniper, then you send it to But anyways,
we're gonna get there. I do want to talk about that too.
But I look at it now, and I'm like, I guess being older and I guess maybe more mature or looking at things through a different light, man. It's that when you when politicians or whoever or even the general public, you know, they're like, oh, this country did this. We have to go. Let's go get them. Let's go get them. I take a sit back now. I'm like, but you're not the one going.
Exactly.
And you don't understand, like, the
people
physical. And people are going to die. And even if you don't die, you know, here in this physical world, man, a piece of your soul, a piece of your mind gets taken away. Like, I was completely messed up after I got out. Like, attempted suicide twice. And you know, a lot of different things happened over the course of, you know, me getting out. And not because of, being in that environment or killing people. It was just that trying to process this chaotic lifestyle into a lifestyle that's not as chaotic, and then seeing the climate we were being led into, or the climate we're in, and I'm just like, man, I left those guys. They're gonna go back, and odds are maybe one might die, or even if one doesn't die, it might be from another unit or something like that. Like they don't see that everybody who's died that I knew was under the age of 25. One of the guys, Ben Kopp, who saved my life, he was 21. You know what I mean? And I watched him bleed out. I tasted his blood. So it was like, Jesus. I don't push as much. All right. I think there's a time and a place and a season for everything, and I just don't think that now, or as much as I guess we try to send America, the troops and the young men and women to go fight and kill. Yeah, we look at some people do need to get shot. I get it. Sometimes we need to do bad things to bad people. But on the flip side of that, I think we become so, desensitized to not seeing the faces of these young kids that are dying, and it's become nothing more than it's a scroll at the bottom of a news station, and you don't really, you just see a name, and no one really reads that stuff unless you're into like the Now or the Nasdaq and the Dow and S&P or something like that, or like little things that pop up on the ticker, but it's a name that flashes by. This guy was killed, 21 years old. You don't see a face.
Or just numbers. Or
or a number.
30 were killed
exactly,
in a bomb.
yeah.
And I'm just like, it's so sick.
Yeah.
And I hate, it bothers me because I see a lot of political commentary around, and they use the military as like pawns in their game of political warfare, and it's just for higher up. You're like, people don't really give a shit, and that's what bothers me, man. Like, people don't give a fuck about and I'll probably get backlash for saying that, but like, people don't really care, man, or else we wouldn't be so quick to send people to die.
I agree, and I think that after 9/11, I get it. I get the climate we were in, but after being in combat, deployed 6 times, and then did military contracting, I'm fighting the same people. You know what I mean? It's the same people.
See, I wanted to talk about that too, because as an outsider looking in, and you kind of get you in this society, you live in your bubble. And like, I grew up playing football. I knew I wanted to play football, and that was my world. My world was football, and I've always been interested in other things, but my specialty was football. And so when you hear about wars and you hear about what we're fighting and who we're fighting and what we're fighting for, you get lost in the shuffle. You get lost in the mess.
Yeah.
So like, how would you best give advice to like an average citizen who's interested in the boots that are on the ground right now and trying to learn the history of it without having it being politicized? Because right now the average person can't tell you the difference between the Taliban or Al Qaeda or ISIS or any of these extremist groups that are a real threat to the United States of America. How would one go about differentiating all of those and the history behind it?
They're really, I'm not going to say hate is hate. You know what I mean? There's only one word for it, and we're just giving it different titles. But essentially, we're fighting people who hate us or have a hateful spirit or mind or whatever. And that's something you can't kill is faith. Faith is having a belief in something you haven't seen yet. Whatever their goal is, they haven't seen it yet, but they have faith that they're going to get there. However long, however many thousands of years. I mean, you look at, some of these countries we're in have been fighting thousands of years. Yeah. America alone, we've been involved in war for over 50 years straight. We're almost desensitized to war. We've been in it so much, and I have 6 deployments. My friends, I don't have a friend that doesn't have less than 10 deployments. One of the guys who was a Ranger who died a couple of years ago, he had 14 deployments, and that's like, for us, I mean, it's a job, and that's what we signed up to do. But when you start pushing a guy to the limit of 14 deployments and they miss all their children's birthdays, they have no family time. And when we're home for the 6 or 7 months that we're home, it's not home time. We only get 2 weeks. So before I left to my last deployment, I accumulated like two total weeks over split time and stuff like that to actually spend time at home by myself. Everything else was just training. And then you go off to war for a few months, 4 months, 5 months, or 6 months or something like that. And then you come back and repeat that cycle. And that's because there's a need to do bad things to bad people, but when are we going to realize that you can't kill an ideology? At that point, it becomes genocide.
So that was a perfect segue to my next question was like, do you or some of the guys that you've been in, talks with, or just, because obviously you develop a brotherhood there and you talk far past what you're there for. So is there ever any cognitive dissonance as to why you're there in the first place?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the first deployment, second deployment, third, you're not really thinking too much about it. It's kind of like you're learning the game, and it's fun at the time, especially when it's majority of a one-sided firefight.
Right.
But over time, and you're still there, then you're killing, the son who, watched his dad die from the Americans, and now you're fighting his son, and he has. So that's their whole religion or whatever. They have tons of kids, and when you go into a house or you storm a building or whatever, and you take a guy or whatever, that kid doesn't really, they can't conceive or perceive what's exactly happening. They're seeing some guys in uniforms come take my family away, have no idea what my parents do, if it's bad or good, because kids only see parents as one-sided.
Right.
And then they build this hate for what we're over there doing. And sometimes we do make mistakes, and we hit the wrong house or we kill the wrong guy or whatever, collateral damage or what it may be. But you got to look at it from the other side as well.
Right.
And I think that's the cool thing about being a sniper is that our motto was without warning, without remorse. But on the flip side of that, you have to be extremely remorseful in order to intimately be involved with someone's life and then take it. You know what I mean? You have to be, extremely
That's
heartfelt.
heavy, man.
Yeah. And it is like when we take the test to become a sniper, there's a lot of psychological evaluations. A lot of there's a question on there: who do you love more, your mom or your dad? And who do you?
Oh my God!
I have no idea how to answer that, but there's I guess a solution to it, man.
I love my mom more, man.
I think that's what I said too.
I mean, it's natural. Like if you were mama's boy, your mom pops was hard on me. Like,
but I'm a guy who coming out of high school, I'm like trying to cheat on the test. I'm like, man, C for everything, But
C was always the go-to.
Yeah, but no, I think that.
So like the and stop me if I'm probing too hard because this is
I love deep
shit.
thought. Yeah,
Okay.
I love deep thought, man. Higher state of consciousness.
I have never. I've gotten plenty fights, but I never really ever had the intention of ending anybody's life.
Yeah.
I've never gotten close to it. Can you talk about what that's like?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you from my perspective, some guys are different. Some guys that might eat them more. Some guys might get a kick out of it. Over time, you're nothing more than essentially like a serial killer. You're killing a specific type of people. You know what I mean? That's the definition alone would classify us as that. But for me, it was the first time I ever had to kill someone. I was first deployment. I was 18 years old, and coming from a religious background and thou shalt not kill and all that, man. It's like we're finishing up on a mission, and I see this car coming. I was in the lead striker. I have a big 50 cal anti-tank. Shoots anti-tank bullets and stuff like that. The projectile's like 5.5 inches long total, and it's like shooting a thumb at a really, really fast speed. And this guy rolls up, and my commander, he's like, hey, if this guy keeps coming, comes in our convoy, take him. And I'm like, whoa, like, you want me to kill a guy? Like, this is real life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was kind of hard for me. I knew it was a part of war, but having to do it, I'm like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be chaos, and I'm just like, whatever.
Right.
This is like
Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty. Yeah. No, this was a car with a dude in it. Closer he got, I can see his face, man. And eventually he's like, hey, shoot him. And I'm like, take it off safe. I'm like, wait, what? And he started getting mad. He hits me on the helmet. He cusses me out. He's like, get him, boom, whatever. You could. They had been overseas plenty of times. I wasn't able to tell that, by the way the car looked and was weighing down and the trunk and all that this guy had IEDs in there.
Ugh.
And he's coming up, so I'm finally like, screw it, boom, 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 boom. I think it was a 7-round burst or something like that, 7 to 8, 9-round burst, and I'm shooting these large projectiles that can take out a tank at a car with a dude in it, And I remember seeing his face, and then it wasn't like a face of, like, at first it was a face of, like, very focused. You could see the focus in his eye. And then it was, I put the first few rounds on the hood of his car, and then he was kind of like that. And then the bullets that impacted inside of the car and hit him, it was eyes and then just jello, like just jello with clothes on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this dude just turned into mist inside of his car, like completely. He was inside of his car. He made up the interior of it. And then getting back to the room, I had a really, really hard time mentally, like processing all that. I had this state of like, wait, what? To a state of like excitement, to a state of, what did I just do? Like, that was a living person, and what am I going to go to heaven or whatever? Right. And I'm like, what is going on? And then that dies off. Then I have this remorseful feeling of like, did this guy have a family, or what was this all about? And then I would kind of like forget about it. But I went to sleep that night, had this crazy dream, and I was laying on my back in the room I am overseas, and I look up at the ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan turns into the guy I had shot. So his head is a centerpiece like the bulb, and then his arms and his legs were the fans, and he's spinning, but his face is kind of stationary, just staring at me with this like scared face, and he spins faster and faster, and I can't move in my bed, so I'm like strapped down or something, and then I just see like he gets faster and faster and faster until he can't take it, and then he just rips apart all over my room and then splatters me with it, and it's like, the only dream I ever had about killing someone was after the first one.
Oh man,
Then I kind of
that's
forgot about
heavy, man.
Yeah.
That is so heavy.
I was 18, 19, 18. Yeah.
And so after that, does it kind of become routine?
I thought it would. Like you hear in the movies and you hear people talk like after the first one it's easier. Man, no. But for me it wasn't. Maybe it is for some people, but it was the exact same experience. Like before I became a sniper, I was a machine gunner, and then I did some assault work, and then I was a designated marksman. But most of my kills, man, would have to come from, like, you get the whole sniper kill box number. But then before that, in Iraq at the time, the rules of engagement and the way the enemy were behaving and the people we were going after, it was a no joke. Like, it was the wild, wild west, man. So there wasn't a deployment where I'd never killed, anyone, except for one in 2008. I didn't shoot anybody. But leading up from 2005 to 2008, I was a machine gunner, like at a time where there was a lot of people and a lot of people with guns. So I don't know how many I took, but I knew I was taking some. And then a few of them I remember that were one-on-one. I was like, oh, I shot that guy. But it never got easier. It was like, man, like it was a sad feeling. But it only intensified when I became a sniper. That's when like the real emotion and like the breakdown, I could classify it on this roller coaster ride.
Is it because like one-on-one you can kind of justify it as it was either him or me, whereas a sniper you're kind of sitting back like you can see it so
he has no idea it's coming.
Yeah.
Like most of them were them watching my guys and me and them having no idea where I'm at. I'm usually like a couple 100 yards away, a few football fields away, and sitting on a roof, or one case like half a mile away. And they're looking at our guys and they're, talking on radios like, hey, get the big guns ready. The Americans are coming. We're going to slaughter them in the name of Allah and all this and that.
And you can hear them talking?
Yeah, we're getting it translated through I'm like, this is pretty scary. And like, what are the big guns? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
So I'm like, I'm watching, this is a perfect story. I'm watching this guy in the brush, and he's got a radio, and we can hear him talking. I can hear him talking, and a few other guys, leaders and stuff like that. And he's watching all of our guys pass by. He's got on this black man dress, and he's crouched down in this tall brush. And I'm like peeled off to the road, and I squat down. I'm looking at him through my scope, just getting my breath right. And I zoom in, and he's, relatively filling up my scope. I'm like, man, what do I aim at this point? Like, I don't want to aim at his head because he's moving it a lot, and I don't want to miss and look like I don't know how to shoot. So I'm just going to aim at his body, top portion of his body. But I'm like, am I going to hit him in the heart? Because I would have to go through his shoulder blade. I was like, I'm cranking a pretty good rifle, round right now. I'm going to kill him. So wait for all my guys to go by, and then he sees them go by. Then he comes, he looks over his shoulder to where the guys are going, and then I see the AK underneath his dress, and he makes the call like, hey, here they come. They're coming around the corner. And as soon as I see that, before he could finish that statement, is where I cracked off the round. And then I felt good about that one because I knew specifically, like, hey, you were planning on...
Guys were going to die.
Yeah, so I felt good about that one, and then no joke, like an ambush happened up there, so I run up to the front of that line, hitting guys, hit a guy on the rooftop, and they got killed, and we called in some airstrikes and stuff like that. But we got into, a lot of firefights that night. It was every few hundred meters, man, we were getting ambushed, and we're killing a lot of people.
Man, it's so surreal hearing that.
But the ones on one-on-one was where I felt emotional. That was not in the bad. I didn't feel bad that I took a life, but it was like it takes a piece of you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you're killing a person, and at the time where you're doing it, you don't really, like as a sniper, you don't get a chance to see some of the times all the bad stuff that they're doing.
Right.
You can see them prepping to do it. Like, hey, this guy's got a gun and he's about to shoot my guys, but he didn't get a chance to do it. And the fact that he doesn't know it's happening, it's like. It's kind of cool, but then it's kind of like, oh man, this dude has no idea.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I would do a warning shot if I, warning shot past the head, and they would kind of freeze up. But then you get the ones who believe in Allah so much, and the path. What do they believe? It's like, if it's Allah's will, it will be done.
Yeah.
So they think that first round
will be done.
Yeah. They think the first shot I took missed, so they're like, he missed. But I'm like, oh man, don't do it. Then,
so then you're God after that.
Yeah. Yeah, boom.
Yeah. That's what we grew up watching, was like that God sniper.
Yeah. It was a little bit like that because you could see so much, man. You can see everything, and you can do a lot. You can do a lot as a sniper.
Man, it's just so surreal because I'm so far removed from that life.
Yeah.
Like I live in this comfortable.
Pray you never have to do it, man.
Yeah,
like
no,
that's
for real.
I will be.
So someone had to do it though.
Someone had to, but I think that like when kids ask me now, like, hey, I want to be like you when I grew up. I want to be a sniper. I thought the same way, and I never had anyone to talk to about what it's like after the fact. I can tell you about what it's like. You know, you can watch a movie and say, "Oh, combat looks pretty fun," and it is. It's a pretty good. If you're into adrenaline rushes, then yeah, it's a big rush. But the flip side of that, no one ever told me the part of like, hey, man, it takes something away from you're not the same person after that.
So what? Yeah. So talk about like when you say take something away from you. Like, what exactly do you mean by that?
I think we're all born to be good people, essentially. You know, if you look at any kid, no kid is freshly born comes out and they're like punching mom in the face or are cutting up stuff. No kid is meant to be bad as a human being.
I knew we're all born was an asshole, man.
maybe him.
And I'm very good.
But we're all born a pure spirit. Essentially, there's nothing that has influenced it, and I think that everyone has that potential to be that way. And if you're raised a certain way and actually believe that, then taking a life or whatever you're doing that may be viewed as bad or whatever, it takes a portion of you because deep down inside we're all good people. Then you got have people who are not wired right maybe. And they don't get that connection. But people who are generally good people who have to take a life, it takes a portion of you because it's essentially going against your morals or what you're.
So does it like detract from your worldview of like optimism?
Dude, I'll tell you what it did for me. It made me view people as a whole different. Like I didn't like anyone. When I got out after that deployment, I had seen a lot of guys get shot, seen guys die. Had a crazy deployment. It was just like I knew I was going to die that deployment. We even tried it. We were like, "Hey, pull a pin on a grenade because we're about to get overrun, and we're going to hug it and pound it fist." I'm like, "Hey, tell my family I fought hard." Well, we did all that stuff, and then that's when Ben Cop came and saved us, and we got out. Then 5 minutes later, I watched him get hit in this chest high ravine, and all of his blood washed down, and do all that stuff, man. That was a crazy firefight. Lasted for I was on that mission for 5 days, and I slept in a cumulative like 45 minutes out of those 5 days. Just a lot of stuff happened. But after I got out, man, I viewed people differently. Like I didn't think they cared. Like it was like no, I don't know. Leaving home to go overseas and then coming back and seeing all the change. Like even a song to me, I get back and I'm like, oh, this song is nice. I'm like, man, this is old. What are you talking about? You're at a club or something like that. You feel so disconnected.
Right.
And it's like, why didn't time stop? Why didn't no one acts like they care? You know what I mean? It's like I left everything and I get back and I don't even fit in, and it's felt like no one cared. So I started to build this mindset of no one cared. No one really, I was having a hard time when I got out. I had, just emotional problems. Like I didn't feel like I did enough or I didn't know how to fit in, so the only place I knew how to fit in was back in combat. So I picked up private military contracting and got a chance to do some cool stuff, man, and go back to Iraq and stuff like that. But when that was all said and done, I knew that's not what I really wanted because I woke up in the bed one day and I look in my closet in this brand new home I just bought, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to go back. And it was the day I was supposed to get on the plane. I was just like, this isn't for me anymore. I just can't do it. So I stayed at home and I lived off of this private military contracting money for as long as I could and had no idea what I was going to do in life. And then I woke up one morning, car's gone, repoed. Woke up another morning, foreclosure notice. I'm like, oh, crap, this is real life. You know what I mean? And during that entire time, I was just in a drunken state of like literally drinking a full bottle of Jack Daniels and chase it with 30 beers. And then go on my back porch on the street behind me with the Glock pistol and be like, you know what, I'm doing it today. Or I still got the scars to prove, I tried cutting myself and all that, man. Like I didn't feel like, I don't know, I felt like I had already died, essentially. And being here was just like a waste. Everyone who I went to go essentially fight for was taking everything away from me, from my house to my car to everything. And I kind of felt like
I never thought about it like that.
That's what it felt like, man. And I was like, man, this isn't right. So I just was like, I guess I don't need to be here.
So as far as that aspect is concerned, it's one of my gripes with people in the first place is you have a Republican Party and you have a Democratic Party who are so fucking gung-ho about telling we got to support the troops. And there is like no funding going into PTSD research or just help for veterans. You go on any street corner in America And there's homeless veterans all over the place.
Yeah.
So you give a fuck about the troops so much, but don't take care of them.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard. Like it's just it's
heartbreaking,
waving
man.
flags,
Yeah,
man. And
it's
like so like
heartbreaking. Yeah.
what is your feeling about that disconnect as far as why this country likes to wave the flag of we support the troops but doesn't actually support
There
them?
was a saying going around when I was in saying the American people say we support the troops. It's only bumper sticker deep. They put it on a bumper sticker and that's as deep as it goes.
That.
And that's the belief we had for a certain time. I'm not sure if I've been out for a little bit, but I do talk to guys, and it's just like either it's that or it's the fact that the parties at B have degraded the standards of what the military that we were in used to be. It's like they just cut the standards. And I know guys who are instructors in special operations, and they're like, dude, it's bad. You know what I mean? Like the standard is not the same caliber of men or women or whatever. It's just like, it's weak, man. It's weak.
Wow.
And we're putting these weak bodies into combat. And then you start seeing, this is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And I don't know, for me, man, I think that why I got out of that rut was like, I started to find, geez, man, like higher state of consciousness. I start finding myself. I knew I was worth more. That was the hardest thing for me to acknowledge, was walking past the mirror every day when I wake up and then addressing that dude first. I never wanted to. It was like walk to the bathroom, drunk, use a bathroom, whatever, come back out. I never had a conversation with that guy. But the day I decided to do that was when everything started to change. I was like, I had to address a lot of demons and say, hey, man, you're an alcoholic. Go to rehab. So I, kind of like a plea for help. I had called my dad and I was like, hey, called him wasted, dude. Like, I need help, basically. And then he enrolled me into an AA program, completed it, came back out and celebrated by drinking a whole bunch, you know?
Man.
Yeah. And I did that up for a little bit. It was just that I didn't feel like I could function and get rid of some thoughts or whatever without being in a different state of mind.
Right.
So I had to keep going back and addressing that guy in the mirror. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you have a problem, man. What is your worth? What are you doing to your body? You know what I mean? I just had this feeling, man, that not that I was important or anything. I just knew that I think that I'm here for a reason. You know what I mean? I think everyone is here for a reason, whether that's whatever it is. Everyone has a specific thing they're here for, completing a personal goal, whatever. You know what I mean? And we're all going to learn something from it at the end of the day, what to do or what not to do. And I knew I had at least that to give. I had to find it. So for me, man, was just finding out who I was again. Looking at old pictures of when I was a kid and then seeing like, man, what happened to that smile? You can look at pictures from like the past 4 years. I never, ever, ever smiled. I just didn't believe in it anymore. You know what I mean? Because that, whatever's on the inside in the flesh, bro, wasn't smiling. I had to get that right first. And, that came about by just seeing a lot of stuff that I had bad with me, man, like mentally and like the power of word. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like in order to change your mind, you have to change your speaking. You have to change that because words come from the brain. That's where they are manifested. That's where they become, before they become words. That's where they originate. So in order to change this up here, you have to start changing what the power of words, what you speak. So I, went on a journal and I start writing every problem I had down. I'm this, what I don't like about myself, what I do like about myself. And I couldn't find anything what I liked about myself. Man. But all the stuff that I didn't like about myself was in relation to the military or whatnot. Like, I don't like the fact that I like shooting so much, or I miss the rush of getting shot at or shooting or whatever. I knew that's not, I'm not going to say it's not right, but it doesn't fit in today's society. Like, getting cut off in traffic, I'm like, man, I could waste this guy. That's the way it was overseas. You cut us off in traffic and you put on or whatever, be dumb. It's like, hey, it was that easy. Right. So finding out how that didn't fit in, man, and led into a journal, and that journal became a book, and that was a whole crazy story in itself, man. It was self-published, but before I even wrote that, I was so scared to even touch that topic. I had self-published like 5 books on combat survival, how to shoot, and stuff like that.
Right.
Before I even touched that subject, and then that didn't work out, low on money more, and I was in a computer room with the floor, had no carpet. It was just beer cans, bro, like beer cans. And I was like, you know what? I know I can stay awake for 5 days, so I'm not going to leave this computer room until I come out with the product of something of value. So I locked myself in there, got wasted, didn't sleep, and just typed and typed and typed and typed, put out a few books, man, and maybe made about $50. And I was like, oh, the crap, this isn't good. I need a break. I need to go to Vegas. So I was like,
Said everybody ever.
yeah. So I got in contact. Well, this Navy SEAL hit me up, and he was like, "Hey, you want to fly out to Vegas? We'll do like a little podcast or something like that." And I was like, "Okay, cool, man. I don't have any money, so you got to front the flight and everything else." I didn't really say. I just said front the flight. Didn't tell him my financial situation, but I'm in Vegas, and there's so much alcohol and everything I love there, to self-medicate or whatever. And it was kind of essentially free. It was like I would only go to the bars that, hey, man, we'll buy you a drink, or hey, it's free drinks. So I'm, there doing that, man, and get a phone call from home, and it's like, hey, the electricity's out now. And I'm in Vegas partying it up, trying to live this lifestyle that I knew, it wasn't for me. Electricity's off at the house. So, dude, I had this idea. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask this guy. I knew this Navy SEAL, he had a book. And I was like, hey, man, how'd you get a book? I want that. I want it to be big time. And he's like, are you sure you want that? I was like, yeah, I think I can do it. And then he got me in contact with this editor. And I was like, on from there, man. And that book led into other books and then TV shows and then movie and stuff like that. And then owning companies and whatnot. But all that, even with the book out, I still hadn't found myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was still broke and everything. I had to find me first, man, do a lot of thinking and understand like the power of mind and thought. Like you even said it, like you wanted to be, all you knew was football. Mm-hmm. I started realizing that whatever you want to call it, man, that whether you say, if you believe in the Bible and it says, hey, did you not forget that ye are gods, or whatever your religion may be.
John 10:34.
There you go, yeah. And it's like, I started realizing before I even knew that quote that, like you said, you've always wanted to be that in life, and I've always wanted to be a sniper. Even with the medical issues or whatnot, what caused me to get there? And it all comes from the mind. Whatever you dream, whatever you think of, the thing that is taken away from us when we're in elementary school, sitting down, trying to draw outside the lines and be creative, you're told not to do. I went back to being that kid again. And that's when everything started I knew being a kid, having a dream is where it got me to be in a career in the military. Why not go back to square one? I knew that plan worked. So I just start using my mind more and studying and reading and learning and like, hey,
So, Jesus, man, that's so, it's so powerful and inspiring. Just hearing that whole...
Anybody can do it, man.
Man, it's just... I mean, to even have that ability, though, it's breathtaking to be able to be in the situations that you were. Mm-hmm. And then to step outside of yourself, step outside of your loyalty to that and say, where am I in this? Yeah. It's brilliance.
Anybody can. I think that we get caught up with the outside image so much, and especially with social media.
Oh, yeah.
You're always scared. But when you're in the bathroom or when you're looking in a mirror, no one else is there. You can be as honest and open as you completely want to. And that was the hard part, breaking down that show. Like no one else, I don't give anyone else power over me. In order for me to be mad, it's a conscious decision that I have to make myself mad. And it's almost in that same light when I look in the mirror. Whenever anyone looks in the mirror, man, you have to be and that realization that there's no judgment. You are the only judgment that you're getting or feeling is created by you consciously or subconsciously. And it's all, wherever I'm at in life is because of an accumulative amount of BS or good stuff that happened over the course of some time.
That's so deep, man. God, it's so deep. He always says that we have to go back to our thought process as kids.
I'm going to tell you what, you have to, man. Like, that's the power of everything. Everything that we're talking on now, computers and all that came from someone's mind, a dream, and all they did was go into the future and then bring it to the present, man. None of this stuff is real anyways. If you look at it on a quantum level, none of it's real anyways, man.
Hey, that's my kind of guy right there, man. Bring up quantum mechanics in a
I love
conversation.
Quantum mechanics, man.
It's an amazing, we still don't really understand it, but yet we harness its ability.
I don't think it's really meant to be understood, though. Like, if you look at as deep and as far down as it goes, what we're talking about in quantum mechanics or quantum theory are things we can't even see anyways.
Right.
It's all theory.
Probability.
And everything's infinite. Everything's infinite. Like, nothing's ever at a steady... a stagnant place. Everything's always vibrating, always moving. The minute you find yourself stagnant is the day you die. You know what I mean?
I used to say it all the time. Is what is it? I don't remember what the fuck I said. But it's if you're the day you become content, you die inside.
Boom. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the universe, man. Everything's in motion.
Dog, it's great hearing like this perspective from somebody from your background. Because it's not, you wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't think, and I guess this is my judgment. I could definitely be an asshole for making that.
I've always been into stuff like that, though, man.
Right.
Like I don't think it has to do with the military. I understood that, as much as people or as much as I wanted to hold on to that military lifestyle, that's not the way books are written or read. You know what I'm saying? Like you got chapter 1, prologue or whatever when I was born. You got chapter 5 when I was in the military. In order for me to get to the end, I have to close that chapter. Or I could be the most awkward person on the planet and keep one hand on the grouping of chapter 5 and then constantly flip back as I'm reading. Who reads like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So life is nothing but a book.
Beautiful way of looking at it, man.
I love that.
I hate to go from something so deep.
Yeah,
to something so. I don't want to say it's surface level, but it's definitely plaguing our country right now.
Yeah,
It sparked a huge bit. So Colin Kaepernick kneeled for the national anthem. I was one of the first players that knelt as well, and received a lot of backlash for it.
Yeah.
And it was for trying to raise awareness for police brutality and the injustices in the criminal in the criminal justice reform. All of these issues that have been plaguing our countries for years. This was his way of protesting this. And the rhetoric from the right, politically leaning people in America said that we were pieces of shit and we didn't care about the military and yada yada yada. And we are in his sentiment from the jump, because it was his initial lead, and we were in support. And obviously, we're growing up black in this country. We see what he sees. That was never our sentiment.
I get,
And so sitting down with a former military who has literally taken bullets for this country, what was your view of the whole situation?
I look at where he got the idea from. In order to be respectful, he got it from a veteran. And not just a veteran, Special Forces Green Beret, Nate Bauer. And I know Nate Bauer. I had drinks with Nate Bauer on his birthday, watched him have a great time downtown San Antonio.
And that gets lost in the discussion all the time.
But I think I'm not going to say purposely, but I like psychology too, man. And I think that when you look at it, the mentality behind it, whether it's for whether the opposing side to what's happening in the NFL or the protest, you have to look at it at a subconscious level. Like, why is this demographic, or why is this organization or these people ignoring certain things in there? Like, hey, Nate Bauer told him to do this to be respectful, or hey, it's because of X, Y, and Z, injustice or whatnot. If someone cared, they wouldn't shut it down so much. Like, I might not agree with I'll tell you a perfect example, man. I was in a holding cell with a guy who had killed Americans, tried killing us. But we had he spoke English perfectly. He was a black guy with dreads.
And where?
Iraq.
Wow.
Yep. And I was in his in a holding cell with him. Not in his cell. Screw that. I was on the outside. I'm a good guy. But he didn't want to catch those hands at that time. But
40 deep.
Yeah, 40 deep, man. And we had a convo. And as much as I hated this guy, genuinely, like, if you told me, hey, shoot him right now, Nick, I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. But he told me, I was like, hey, why do you hate us, man? And I was like, well, you speak English? And I had been talking so much shit, like, before I found out he knew English.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I was saying so much stuff, man. But, found out, dude, and I listened, and I not understood everything, but I got it. You know what I mean? It's like...
What's that conversation?
Well, think about it. If you open up the blinds and saw people in your backyard walking around with guns, you have no means of TV or television, right? You just see this stuff happening. And they're shooting up stuff. You, as a person who's living in that environment, you're going to want to naturally defend your territory.
Right.
I got that. And his religion and his belief, why he calls us infidels. And I was like, so, do you believe in Jesus? Or he's like, yeah, he was a prophet. And it's like, so you believe in all that stuff, but you still have this, it's just who they are, man. They think that you always have one side that thinks they're right, and in order to make them stay right, remain right for the longevity of their belief system,
right,
the wrong has to go away. You know what I mean? So do I think the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, it got so twisted and so misconstrued through, if you tell someone something, a lie, whatever it may be, long enough, repeatedly, they have to believe it.
Trump.
And especially, even if you look at television, man, like, people who get so caught up in television and what's trending or whatnot, I take a sit back. I don't even watch the news like that anymore, man, or TV for that matter. I read a lot of books, and it's like, break down television. Television stands for nothing more than telling your vision. You know, they call it television programming your mind by telling your vision. Repeatedly, they program you to believe something through the use of telling you repeatedly over and over and over on every single station you go through. So the little guy with no, you know, doesn't own a network like NBC or whatever, a big network, doesn't have the power or capability to override or give a different rhetoric or outlook or an opposition to what has the majority or the power of telling people how to think or whether they believe it or not. And it's called television programming for a reason. You know, he didn't have that capability. Right. And Nate Bauer, he was so like shuffled out or kind of like minuscule to the point where he wasn't even existing anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that like Nate Bauer's a solid, hard dude, man. Like it's a, you know, cool guy, man. But I think one side, I'm not going to say they necessarily want to ignore it. It's that when a problem doesn't affect you, you don't really care as much. Right. Like, and it goes back to the whole like, hey, me losing everything. No one cared. Like, I didn't get a handout, or no one said, hey, man, we're gonna. And people knew what was happening. My next door neighbors knew what was happening. They watched my car get repoed. No one said, hey, here's $100 or whatever. Right. You know, right. I didn't have that capability of doing it.
So like, I mean, the whole protest was based on racial discrimination, profiling. Obviously, because of the color of your skin.
I'll say this though, man. Like I look into that a lot too. Like, why am I where I'm at, or what's preventing me from, you know, nothing's really preventing me from getting to where I want to be. I think as me being me, you being you, you being you, there has to be more of a backing. I think there's a lot of hate amongst people in general, but you look at, let's say, hip hop. I love rap. I grew up on rap. I love, you know, I can name everybody on there.
Swag.
You know, swag.
We got a rap poster here.
And you got Eminem up on there. That is crazy.
Oh, that's your guy.
Man, come on.
Okay.
Man, I was in high school. I got into a fight. I'm gonna say,
here you go.
Yeah.
I was walking around minding my business, man. People kept attacking me.
I was in history. I was in history class, man, listening to Eminem, How My Name Is, and a dude smacked me on the back of the head. Yeah. So
look, Nick, I'm not.
I don't know what I believe in. I don't know what I did. I'm always I wasn't. I did start some stuff, but that guy.
I think a trigger is residual, man.
Yeah, but I think that we need to, like, in order for, let's say, the black community or, you know, whatever the oppressed community, the only way you can be oppressed is if you allow it.
I agree.
You know, and you
to a certain extent, I agree.
To a certain, yeah.
So like, if you okay, you look at, like, if you read Steve Jobs' bio, he went to school where it happened to be one of the schools in America that had computers.
Got it.
So it got him interested in computers. So these affluent neighborhoods and these affluent schools happen to receive funding to their educational systems. Yep. And if you look at neighborhoods where we come from,
I didn't have.
So when I say, is there nothing holding us back? Yes and no. Ideally, we have hurdles that other people may not have.
Oh yeah.
Like my
I see it in Hollywood, man.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So my stepfather's mother was a scholar and a social activist, and she mentioned this study that they did at Northwestern. Excuse me, where they took 50 resumes of black kids' names. And 50 resumes of white kids. Yeah, I know names. So you have the Tylers, the Trevors, the Noahs, and they're all and they have the exact same credentials and the exact same as the Shamiquas and the Tamikas and the Jamals. And then you look at the rate that they got calls back. It was overwhelmingly for white kids. So like things like that, there are invisible boundaries. I can drink out of the same water fountain as everybody else can now, but there are invisible boundaries and there are more opportunities. And if you look, there was a study that just came out as well. About people about the sentencing that people of color get, as opposed to the people not of color.
I agree with that. 100%.
So I'm not saying I'm not super deep on what they like to call what they call them Hotep. I'm not super deep on the white man is this, the white man is that. But there are hurdles. There are definitely hurdles. And there are some of the hurdles we put up. And I would agree 100% that the culture that we have influenced, it is now influencing pop culture. we're kind of a product of our environment, and they feed off of that, and they market. It's extremely marketable. Our way of living in our culture. But it's very that ideology is very harmful to our youth.
I think we need to start owning more, man. You can't oppress or take away something that I own outright.
And see, this is the thing. We need to start supporting our.
That's what I'm getting at.
People.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And I think that once we step away,
that's the one reason. Not to cut you off, but it's the one reason why I have Tidal.
Yeah,
because Jay-Z is part owner in it.
Jay-Z, he's our co-producing my TV show.
I wanted to get into that too. Yeah, we're gonna plug all of that. We're gonna plug all of that.
I learned a lot from Jay, especially his new album, man. That's all about.
I said it. Yeah. You watch Desus and Mero?
No.
So you ever heard of them?
Who?
Desus and Mero.
No.
Two of the funniest guys you're ever gonna hear. They're kind of reinventing late night television, and they're just two dudes that came from Twitter. Brilliant minds, super comedic, but they just two niggas from the hood. That talk shit. And they're blowing up. But I was on their podcast, and I said Jay-Z's 444 was his best album.
Best one.
And they tried to kick me off the show, but that was one of, because to me it said hip hop can grow. He's
not even hip hop. You as a person can grow.
But that's what I'm saying. So I mean, if you look at hip hop, has always been youth driven. Music period has been youth driven. But here you go, you have Jay-Z, who's a married man with three kids. And he put out an album at 40, what is he, 44, 45 years old? He's up there.
When I heard the album, I forgot about his age.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it had commercial success. Are you kidding me? That was huge for hip hop.
Huge,
it was
man. Huge. And the message behind everything that he gave, it's like, I watched a YouTube reaction to one of his verses where he said, I bought every V12 engine. I wish I could take it back to the beginning. Yeah, he was like, I could have bought a house in Dumbo before I was Dumbo for like $2 million. Today, that same building is worth $25 million. Guess how I'm feeling, Dumbo. And I'm watching the kids like, I don't get it. I'm like, oh, you got to study up. Like, that's.
But Jay has always gave us those little gems here and there, but it was like street knowledge. And now he's giving us, and people. The people, because I'm on Twitter a lot. I love Twitter. I think it's the best social media platform.
I just got on like big time now.
So it's crazy. That's how I found you. Is like you follow me, and I was like, and I clicked on you. I was like, holy shit, why are you following me?
Yeah. I do that with everybody, man.
I still be fans, man. Yeah. So, but I think to your point, man, it's super important for us to start investing in ourselves and getting because we don't have any natural resources. Our natural resources are our athletes and our entertainers. Yeah. And we need to start investing in our communities so that we have our youth no longer want to be athletes and entertainers. And
that's why I'm doing books, man.
Doctors
I do books because of what Malcolm X said. To disprove Malcolm X. He's like, you want to hide information from a black person or a nigger? Put it in the book.
Put it in the book.
So what smack in the face, or what better could it be than to not only have multiple books, but now I'm starting up a book company, where it's like, I wanted to get away from the whole veteran thing too, man. I think that
I'm trying to get away from ex-NFL player, man.
I can I'm telling you, this is my belief, man. And I might be speaking out of turn, or I believe in prophesizing, man. You look at Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, they speak it into existence, the power of words.
LeVar Ball,
man.
Fucking love LeVar Ball.
As much as I don't like I'm not even gonna say that. Like, I don't even know the guy.
He talks shit.
He talks so much good shit though. And I think that maybe that was my problem in school too. I got way too much attention from talking too much shit. Right. But it's good attention for him.
It's slowly coming out.
It's slowly coming out. Maybe I talked a little too much. But I could back it up to a certain extent. But
we know.
A little bit. But I look at like what I'm doing now, man, and like where I want to take where I am now. I don't like being, I'm not gonna say owned or controlled or whatever, but
it is.
When you have a product, let's say a book, and I'm done with the whole like, hey, this is why I did the military book stuff. I'm like, hey, there's not only so much you can write. I didn't do 50 million years, and I didn't kill the entire world. Good thing, but you know what I mean. But it's like, what else can I give back? I know I'm a good writer. New York Times bestseller, and I have 80% of my publications are wanting to be picked up by Hollywood. I'm not bad, you know what I mean? But it's like, what can I give back? You know what I mean? I think that veterans, when they get out the military and start up a company, they're like, oh, support us because we're veteran-owned. Well, over time, it's like, well, what do you bring to the table? There's like 1 million veteran-owned companies out there. Right. Got it. But a lot of them are doing the same thing. And some of the product might not be as great or as good. Just don't buy it because I'm a veteran. Buy it because I want to have something to offer. Like the product. I have a story to tell, and that's when I transitioned over to the fiction world. But then as a veteran, we're like, oh, we got to hire out more veterans and more veterans and more veterans and more veterans. I'm like, okay, but if your business, I know it's not going to be here in 2 years or 4 years over the course of time and just the natural, way business works or whatever. If you're not going to be, that puts me out of a job. Now we're all in this same collective bowl of no one has a job and we have to find a way. So what I'm not planning on, it's already like written up and I just have to find the people. I've found a few people who want to, do this whole thing. But anyways, it's a book publishing company and everyone has a story to tell whether we, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Every single person, you're alive. You have a story or you have an imagination. It could be about anything, man. Make a character about a guy who goes to the zoo and gets lost. Who knows, right? There's a story. All of us naturally want to go back to that creative side we had as a kid because it's been suppressed for so long. A lot of people don't have that outlook or outreach or know-how. So what I'm doing is like, instead of that whole hire veteran thing, man, I'm like kind of bringing it back a little bit in order to have that whole collective civilian demographic want to hire veterans. What better way than to not have a company where I employ civilians and stuff like that with no military background, don't want to write a book about, military and killing, want to do something and impact someone else in a greater way, but they're being hired underneath a veteran, if you want to call it that. I'm more of a businessman than anything else now, but it's like, if you want to have the overall demographic of civilian, to hire military personnel, why don't we regurgitate that and give that back? You know what I mean? Like, what if you hire a civilian who becomes an author within my company and they become a New York Times bestseller? What do you think they're going to go out and do? Right. You know what I mean? Same thing I did. But
each one teach one.
Exactly.
It's all it's see in the world.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And that's I'm at a point now in life, man, where I think that like I don't know, man. Like I'm just like I'll do something if I have to do it. Like take a life. You have to harm my family, or I don't know, punch me in the throat or something like that. Probably won't even kill you then. You know what I mean? Right. But I'll just take you to court and like tie you up in litigation. You know what I mean? But it's like, man, I just advanced more as a person now, and I'm like, there's a lot of hate. You know what I mean? In the world, whether it's white, black, Muslim, Christian or whatever, there's a lot of that going on, man. And whether you believe it or not, like I think that like attracts like. Everything's magnets at the end of the day. We're all attracted to something and, something. Mm-hmm. And birds of a feather flock together. Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. The more positivity you put out, man, the more encouragement, regardless of what people say, if you're happy on the inside, dude, you're a projection. Whatever I project, whatever I feel is what my body's going to project off to you. That's what you perceive. I'm nothing more than an image that's being deciphered by your brain in the first place. You know what I mean? So whatever I have,
man. I wish I had one of them flex bombs. Give me one of them flex bombs.
Yeah, that's how I feel, man. I think that
we're gonna put that in post protection. I'm gonna have my man Keith put a flex bomb right there.
Yeah. If I wanted to, if I want to be viewed different, if I want to have a good life or whatever, I have to live that way. Like, there's a lot of sayings, man, that I think have a lot of codes to them, like fake it till you make it and all that stuff. Man.
I got a whole list. I've been writing stuff like that.
If you want to, there's a meaning behind that.
Y'all
fake it till you make it.
Very like-minded. I know he hasn't talked that much, man.
Well, he's got the whole he
got a Buddha poster behind him. Says let that shit go.
Yeah. Buddha, man. I mean, like I don't even have like a religion. I have a religion, but it's not classifiable to where it's a name, man. I think that's the way religion was supposed to be in the first place. Have no name. And at first I grew up,
You watch Game of Thrones?
No.
Oh, man.
I don't watch any TV like that, man, unless I'm on it.
But watch Game of Thrones, man.
I heard about it. And then after that whole thing, I've been watching. I take that back. My show, man, it's Escobar.
I haven't seen Escobar.
Oh, man.
I haven't seen Escobar.
And, Grey's Anatomy. That's
I did not.
Dude, that's my.
If you was to pay me money to guess what was coming
Grey's
next.
Anatomy. I watched every single episode, and I'm waiting right now until this season's up, so I can go back and finish. I love Grey's Anatomy.
I never would have.
You gotta watch it, man. Like,
I mean, I've heard it's a good show, but like, you was like, let's see, Escobar, Game of Thrones, Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, dude. Like, you want to know how to do an intention hemothorax? Grey's Anatomy.
That's hilarious.
Tracheotomy, I can do it now, man. I watched every episode of Grey. I can do it now.
That shit's hilarious, man. Bro, I feel like we could have a conversation for 2 more hours, man.
Easy.
But for purposes of having you back like soon, I just want to can't feed a baby meat, man. That's what my dad always used to say. So I definitely want to have you back.
Unless you parade.
But there you go.
Boom.
And you can learn that on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
But I want to let you plug whatever you're plugging. I'm definitely going to support, man, and I'm going to encourage any follower of me or the podcast to support as well, man. Your book is called The Reaper.
Yeah.
You type that in so the people watching on YouTube can see it.
The new one coming out, pre-order, man. Like that's a hot book. It was up by. It's been praised by Brad Thor, who is a number one New York Times
right
bestseller.
there.
But then Reaper Ghost Target is the one out. That's the fiction one, and it kind of steps away from like, it's still warish, but it's like if you like Jason Bourne, Brad Thor even said that. He's like imagine Jason Bourne meets Bob Lee Swagger, from the movie Shooter.
Shooter's my favorite.
You like that?
I was gonna bring it up, but like,
man, please do. Yeah,
man. Mark Wahlberg. That's when he became one of my top 5 favorite actors. Was from that movie, and I love. So I was gonna ask you what you felt about that because I loved that.
I liked the movie minus the sniping portion.
So you like me. Any football movie I watch is fucking corny.
I love. What's the worst one you've seen football wise?
Oh man, all of them are trash to me. Except for I'll tell you a movie I do rock with.
Okay, Friday Night Lights.
No, corny.
What? No.
Corny, man.
The program.
The program, but I think that's because I was a kid. Even more corny.
You're kidding.
Even more corny.
No.
Remember the Titans 5.
Remember the Titans?
Yeah.
So funny.
You like it because of the shit you laugh
It's
at.
hilarious.
So I guess it's like this. So I'm a football player. Any football movie I watch, it's gonna be weak.
Yeah.
So any sniper movie, you're gonna be like, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
So I guess Any Given Sunday.
That's a good. That was a
dope.
good one. That's a good
there's so
one.
many corny speeches in football movies.
Yeah.
The last speech of Al Pacino or that halftime speech, that shit gave me chills for real.
Really?
Because that's just real life. Like life is a game of inches, and he had me willing to die for that.
Really?
Shit. Yeah.
Golly, man.
That's a dope movie. Anything else?
Waterboy.
Waterboy was funny.
That was a good
Well,
speech.
that was
though.
funny.
Remember when my Boucher showed up at halftime? They wanted to burn Mohan, dude.
Oh man, but no. So the sniper part, I got. Let me in on it because that's all time. Like I don't download a lot of movies on my iTunes, but Shooter was one of them.
I'll tell you what part gets me. Well, there's a few parts in there. But the one that gets me is where he's on top of the mountain ridge and he's shooting a can.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Bro.
It's not happening?
No.
Why is that not happening?
The can's too small. I mean, the can itself, let's say it measures what? 3 inches circumference?
Right.
Like, that's outperforming the capabilities of that rifle. So let's say he was I think he was shooting a .338 Lapua, and let's say you're cranking out, and on a Bob Lee Swagger, I'll give it 1/4 minute of angle. Weapon system. 1/4 minute of angle. A minute of angle is like a mil radian. So imagine a circle. It's got, whatever. I'll break it down to 1 minute of angle at 100 yards equals 1 inch. 1 minute of angle at 200 yards equals 2 inches, and then progressively like that.
Right.
So, yeah. What did I just say?
You said,
I'm getting to the math.
You said,
so I got 100 yards. I have 1 minute of angle gun is 1 inch shot group. So I can fit 5 bullets into a 1 inch circle at 100 yards. And then at 200 yards, I can fit 5 bullets into a 2 inch, 200 yards?
Yeah.
2 inch circle. And then 3 inch circle, 5 bullets.
That's insane.
Like that. So if you progressively get out to, a mile or 2 miles is what he was shooting, that's not happening. My furthest shot with that weapon system, a .338 Lapua, was 1.12 miles, I think.
Oh my God.
And I hit a chest plate.
A mile away.
Yeah, and that was like, I'll never be able to do it again, ever. I don't know, maybe.
So I get in conversations all the time with just before I get into that, do you have to account for I think it's the Coriolis
I'll tell you
effect?
No, listen, bro.
Okay,
this is what gets me about that.
Okay, tell me.
You just sparked something too. One, the Coriolis effect, right? When he's mentioning about hitting the guy they're going to assassinate.
Right.
He's like, you got to take in the spin of the earth, and the target's not. It's not going to be where it once was, and all this. And I'm like, dude, okay, that was like 1,000-yard shot at that,
right?
Or whatever. I'm like, Coriolis doesn't even take effect. It's so minuscule. Like your wind is going to be your biggest problem.
So real quick. So blow that up real quick. So in physics, the Coriolis force is the initial force that acts on the objects that are in motion relative to a rotating reference frame. So they're saying the Earth spins and you have to account for that while you're shooting. So you're saying you don't have to account for that?
Not at 1,000 yards. Not even at a mile, man. The bullet has to arc at 1,000 yards for, let's say, a .308 round, which is a typical sniper round. 1,000 yards, that bullet's going to apex. The highest it's going to get is 12 feet above the earth or your bore. 12 feet above the bore of your
bore. That means where you're shooting from?
The tip of your barrel. Okay. Wherever you're at, it's going to be 12 feet high up, and then that's the highest it's going to get. Then it's going to fall back down into the target. And
at what distance does it fall back down?
When it hits its apex, let's say at 1,000 yards, I'm shooting, boom, hits the apex, let's say at 600-700 or something like that. Then it starts because of drag and gravity and all that stuff, man, barometric pressure, temperature, it falls down.
So you have to account for temperature?
I do account for that.
Wind?
Yeah. For my shots, anything past 500 yards, I'll account for, well, after 100 yards is when I'm taking in wind. 100 yards, the bullet's getting there in a fraction of a second. So the further out you get, let's say at 1,000 yards, that bullet has a flight time of 1.7 seconds. So 1.7 seconds, 12 feet up is the highest that bullet is going to reach. I can only account for the wind that I see at my position and what I see down there and at ground level, tree or whatever in between.
Right.
But we all know
so
that
you have like flag markers.
No, and not in combat. No,
well, no, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, on range, yeah.
Right.
But then you have to.
So in combat, you're just
winging it, bro.
Wow.
I send it, bro. Like that's what I say. I just send it. Like I never. There's so much stuff going on. Unless I'm like prepped up and I'm looking at a guy for a while. Other than that, man, I like have a general idea. I'm like, okay, boom, guy's 300 yards away. I don't feel much wind. It's like 2 miles an hour. I'll hold, his shoulder.
You can kind of just gauge.
Oh yeah, fast. Like the mathematical.
So how does temperature affect the bullet? I have no idea.
So. Take a plane, for example. The higher the plane gets, the faster it goes. Like at a cruising altitude, 30,000 feet, plane's traveling 600-something miles an hour. It's impossible for it to do that at, above ground level because of drag and stuff like that. And also, the higher you get, the colder it gets. The air is way thinner, so the bullet's moving way faster. Right. The air is thinner up there. Right. So it's moving way faster. The same things apply with bullets. So I have to take that into account because that's going to affect the speed of the bullet. And when the speed of a bullet is affected, then the distance and range and all that becomes affected as well.
You up there doing calculations.
Did I tell you my best one?
That's crazy.
This makes me sound uber smart, but not really. I mean, I guess.
You have to have a certain level of intelligence to pull this off.
Yeah, forget that 1.7.
A little bit of like, I guess Pythagorean theorem.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Now you know how to shoot off of a mountaintop. That's it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, because you're just triangulating
getting the hypotenuse.
You're getting the true distance. So, I can talk about that. Yeah. So let's say I'm on top of a building, right? And I'm shooting down at.
Did you just mentally go through a checklist of what you can and can't say?
Yeah. Okay, so I shoot down at a person, and that person, from what I look at, he's 300 yards away. That bullet doesn't travel that same flight path or that same distance because I have to go up and gravity and all that. I'm kind of like almost.
You have to account for gravity, so it's like 9.8, like whatever that
meters per second.
Yeah.
No, not that. It comes into effect, but I don't go in that depth. That's already kind of equated for. But what I'm doing on that high angle shot, I'm taking the a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Once I get that cosine of the angle that I'm shooting the person or the target. That cosine of that angle, I'm multiplying that by the distance that I see or the distance that I have. And that gives me the true.
And you're just eyeballing it.
No, I usually have a range finder, or I'm doing a mathematical equation. Let's say like from your groin to the top of your head is 40 inches, right? I'm multiplying that by 25.4 to give me meters. And that comes out to 1,016. And then I take the little dots inside my scope and I divide 1,016 by the dots, the mil dots. So let's say if it's 2 mil dots, I know I have 508 yards. Or whatever. So I'm just doing that math. That's the math that I get. But that bullet, because of gravity and everything else, it doesn't feel that. So it's going to be shorter. I multiply that distance by the cosine of whatever that angle is, and that gives me the new data that I have to put on the scope to send it.
Insane.
But I'll tell you a secret. If you just aim at the groin, you're probably going to be good.
Bubble and C.
Yeah, that's it. That's your C answer right there. That's your C answer.
Yo, man, so plug whatever you want to plug. We can put up on the screen for the people on YouTube that can. I'm going to plug it on all my social media, man. I am going to support you, dog, just off your mental alone. And
Reaper
plus,
Ghost Target, man. If you want to do a book, let me know, man. Anything. Get
hey,
your voice
we
out.
going to rap. We gonna definitely be friends after this, man, because
Yeah,
we definitely vibe the same way, bro.
Easy.
So it's called the Reaper.
Reaper Ghost Target.
The Reaper Ghost Target. Type that in just so
That's
people can see it.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So we end the podcast the same way every single time, man. Jim Carrey is one of my favorite people on the earth walking. Yeah. And so if you've listened to the podcast before, you know we ask all the guests to say the same thing. And we're just trying to get them all, man. So if you could just holler at Jim on the camera right there and see if he can come through.
So what's going on, Jim? I'm a big fan, man. I love your theory and your outlook on how nothing really is real, and that's 100% fact, man. Like, you can change and manipulate whatever you want with the power of the mind, man. So I kind of got that from you, and the whole, I got that, man. Join this show. You need to be on.
Please do. Please do. I appreciate it, man. Nicholas Irving, bro, it was a pleasure. It was an honor, man. I appreciate what you did for this country, man.
Yeah.
And
now on to the next chapter, man. Bigger and better.
Next chapter, and I appreciate what you're doing in that aspect, because you're gonna change little kids' minds, man, and that's probably more powerful.
Trying to.
So from everybody at this podcast, man, we appreciate you coming on, and I hope to see you soon, man. You got my number, so we'll rock, bro.
Yeah.
Much
Gotta get
love,
a picture
brother.
too, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. Likewise.
I'm like, man, I can't leave here. Like, Nick, you weren't really on that show.
It's gonna be on. It's be on the tube, man. Much love, though, man.
Blurs me out on the show.
No. All right, fam.
Yeah.